Shalom, it's me, Skye, and welcome back to the Legend of Zelda. The insert subtitle here. Yes, this is probably one of the only Zelda games without a catchy little subtitle taking place next to it. Of course, only in the North American version. The Japanese version of this game, the subtitle is the Legend of Zelda: The Hyrule Fantasy, but in North America we do not get that. This is the first dungeon. The Eagle Dungeon, because it's called the Eagle Dungeon because it looks like an eagle. You'll see later once we get the map. Dungeons are just basically, they're trials. They're the basic trials of the area that will grant you a piece of the Triforce if you complete the dungeon. Just like you walk through the area, unlocking doors and going through enemies and beating them and you'll get a Triforce piece at the end. Every dungeon will come with, you'll find a compass and you'll find a map, and usually a dungeon will have at least one item that you'll want to keep with you throughout the whole adventure. There's the compass right there. The compass will tell you where the end of the dungeon is in relation to you on the area at the top left corner. See that glowing, that blinking red dot? That's where we want to go. And soon we'll get a map showing us how to actually get there. Granted, you could already see the areas that you've already been in if you press the pause button. Yeah. If you get the map, everything's like a whole lot easier. If you push that block, some of these rooms will have a very, they won't tell you that there's a puzzle in the room, but a lot of the times if there's like a door that would, you could hit the old man and he'll send magic balls at you. But if there's like a door that looks like that to the left, usually the puzzle is you have to destroy all the monsters or you have to push a block, so just keep that in mind. And that old man was just giving us a hint as to where to get to a secret area in the overworld. And here's the eagle. Looks like an eagle, kinda. Or like a genie's lamp. I always thought it looked like that. Oh yeah, and if you kill all the enemies in this here room, you get a boomerang. It's a special item that you can use to stun your enemies. It doesn't actually do any damage, but you can throw it at any of these hands. Don't let them grab you. That's all. Basically, just if you let them grab you, they bring you back to the beginning of the dungeon, and that's no good. And this is a Dargon. You gotta kill him. And then that was basically the boss of this dungeon. We get a heart piece after killing the boss, and since we completed the dungeon, we get a piece of the Triforce. And you guys could barely see it there, since my health was not at all. It was full actually. But after you get that piece, your health goes all the way up, and you don't have to worry about healing after the dungeon, which is fantastic by me. And now, since when I was recording this, I forgot where the second dungeon was. I skipped right to the third dungeon, I believe, or was it the fourth? I'm pretty sure it was the third. I feel like the fourth dungeon would be way too hard for me. But, you know, that's just all a part of the wonder that it is the Legend of Zelda. And of course, as they say in the new Legend of Zelda title that's coming out for the Wii U and NX, Legend of Zelda Breath of Wild, you can apparently, allegedly, go to any dungeon you want in any order. A lot like this Zelda title, which I guess a lot of other Zelda titles have not done. And that'd be pretty freaking amazing. I mean, the game already looks great from the gameplay that they showed, of course. But I mean, if they brought the game back to its roots, like back where it all started, like it did here, then that'd be amazing. But speaking of Legend of Zelda Breath of Wild, have you guys been seeing the gameplay of that? All the technology in it looks so futuristic. It would probably, well, I'm speaking, like, I'd have to bring up the Zelda timeline again, but it would have to take place pretty late in the Zelda timeline, because none of the other games have such futuristic looking things. Like, it'd have to take place much later than this game, and this game is one of the latest in the timeline. This is, if you guys know about the timeline, which I guess I'm probably gonna have to explain here. Basically, in the timeline, it goes like any other timeline. There's the beginning, which is the Skyward Sword, and then it gets to the point where in Ocarina of Time, it splits into 3, where in one of the lines, Link something magical happens, and Link grows old in that game, and then that's when one timeline diverges, and another one where he's young, and another one where Link is basically killed. Speaking of which, every Link in every game is a different Link. Like, they're not all the same person. The only time it's ever the same person is with Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, because those are like direct sequels to each other. And with this Link, and in the game following, The Return of Link, which we'll get into in a second. But this is the timeline where Link is actually defeated and killed, and Ganon is successful in his attempts in Ocarina of Time. And yes, we went in the 3rd dungeon, completely skipped the 2nd. So, if there is a difficulty spike in this dungeon, or any noticeable difficulty spikes, you might see it here, especially with these dark nuts. Yeah, that's what these guys are called, dark nuts. The way to beat these guys is you can not hit their front. You gotta hit their sides or their backs, which is kind of hard to do because they're always moving forward. You can try to place bombs at them, but the bombs are honestly pretty weak in this game, so there's not really any point of using the bombs on any enemy, unless you really, really have to. You know, it's probably not a good idea to use bombs ever. But yeah, those are dark nuts, and they get harder in later levels because those are just the red dark nuts, and soon we're going to be seeing the blue dark nuts. And everything that is blue is evidently much harder in this game. Okay, we're gonna avoid making a joke about that, but I find that dark nuts are a lot easier to beat when you hit them from the side. Okay, the innuendos. But you know, honestly, that's how to. I feel like it's a lot easier when like the side of a block. I mean, when these blocks are here, it's I feel like they're a lot easier to defeat because you can blindside them, and use these blocks to your advantage. Which, you know, I don't know if it was intentional for the game designers to make a room like this to make them easier to defeat, but it works out to my advantage. Yeah, the dark nuts are probably going to be the hardest enemies in this game, especially when they put them in the room like this, like just a bunch of dark nuts. Of course, if we're not talking about like Lionel, which is that centaur guy that we saw earlier with, he's basically, yeah, he was the centaur with like swords for hands, and he shot laser beams too. Yeah, that's the hardest one. But dark nuts, easily the 2nd hardest. Especially when they're blue. Okay, we're done. We're done. We're calling this apart. No, just kidding. But when we were talking about the timeline before, of course I was using the Nintendo timeline, which I mean, I guess is the official timeline at this point. But you know, as it were. Oh, and I've yet to explain the stopwatch item that is in this game. If you grab that, you want to grab that all the time. Because if you grab that, all the enemies in the room freeze forever, and there's no time limit on it. So it's fantastic. If you grab it, I mean, if you see it, go grab it. And it's funny, when you pause the screen on one of the frames of the stopwatch, like when you grab it, you flash a bunch of different colors. Link actually looks like Santa in one of the colored frames that they have. And here's the map to Dungeon 3, and it's the Swastika Dungeon. Just kidding, it is the Manji Dungeon. So, you know, it does look pretty strange, right? The Manji is actually a symbol for peace in some culture that is more relevant to Nintendo than Nazism. So, you know, yeah, Nintendo's not promoting, you know, Nazism, so... Or are they?
Mustache, Euro, Anglo male. Greedy big nose guy is bent on betrayal. Wait, Hitler's Mein Kampf told the very same tale. Oh snap, Tumblr was right. They hate Jews.
Oh, and a little small attention to detail that is done here. When you get closer to the boss room, you can hear roars in the background of the music that's like, rah. It's a very small detail, but I still like it. You can probably hear it in the pause screen here. And you could also hear that beeping noise every time you get low on health, which gets annoying after a while, but you know, you sort of have to deal with it like in Pokemon. Oh, and you cannot defeat those bubbles. Those electrical looking enemies are called bubbles. And here is a boss named Manhandla, and you destroy him by dropping bombs at all 4 of his appendages. And he's pretty easy, pretty simple. Just time out your bomb drops and grab that Triforce piece. Yeah. Oh, and that previous boss from Dungeon 1, the green dinosaur with a horn on its head, was called Aquamentus. That was Aquamentus. Pretty cool sounding name. And I just edited to a point where we got the second heart piece. Usually I wouldn't have edited for a game like this, especially because I don't want you viewers to get lost in this game, like anyone who's like using this as like a guide or anything. But you know, I'm pretty familiar with the area, and but you know, I not everyone might be too familiar with it, but I did a lot of wandering, and I felt like that was just like a waste of time. But you know, as it were, you know, it's pretty, at first, well, I mean, of course, at first I'd be pretty lost in an area like this. Like, it's very open-ended and not a lot of things telling you where things are. Speaking of which, that was just like a gambling minigame where you could bet money to get either more money, the same amount of money, or you lose a lot of money. And I don't like playing that game because usually I'll be losing a lot of money. So we're just gonna try to avoid those games for now, but you know. But back to the map. Usually in the beginning areas, you want to stick to the center areas at first. When in like the first 4 dungeons, you don't want to stray too far to the left. Well, I mean, I'm at the furthest right of the screen right now, but that's mostly because I wanted to get a heart piece, which is over here, which is only obtainable from the raft that we got, which I completely ignored. We got it in the 3rd dungeon, but yes, that is what the raft does. We'd sail across the seas, as long as that platform is attached to land. As you can see, I cannot get over to the area to the right over there, because, you know, the raft doesn't do that. But another item will get us over to that heart piece, and we're going to get that in one of the upcoming parts. I'm not sure if it's this part, this part 3 of this, or in part 4, but we're gonna get it in soon. You know, and by the way, that's a very suspicious looking tree right over there. That is actually the last dungeon that we need to get to. So, you know, if you want to beat the game right now, I guess you could. Of course, you can't really, or we can't beat Ganon right now. Believe it or not, it takes a little bit more than just courage to actually beat Ganon. We need a certain item in one of these dungeons. But, you know. But, right now we are almost at Dungeon 3, or excuse me, Dungeon 2, which we'll be exploring in the next part. So I hope you guys have been enjoying this part. Oh, by the way, the statues that we touch and start moving around like crazy, those are called Armos. Yes, that is their name. But, until next time, we'll have fun in this snake dungeon in the next part. See you guys then.